episode of Coder Conversations. Today, I have Senior Technical Lead Abdul Wahab. Thank you for stopping by the show, man.
My pleasure, Kevin. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank
Definitely
you.
glad to have you on here, man. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
I would love to, yes, actually. And I'm a systems guy. I love systems and how everything works. I love tinkering with things and love how they works. Um, I just like learning how things are programmed to work and how they work. And eventually, if you fast forward 10, 15 years ago, I was a biology major in college. And because I wanted to study biology and eventually go to med school to become a doctor and, treat people and that kind of thing. Because I used to love how, body and the systems of the body all work together and, they help to, make up the human body and everything. So that was like around 2012, 2013 time. Then my dad, he actually suggested me, like I was on the phone with him one day after coming from the open house at the college. He was like, "So what's your major?" I told him biology. He's like, "Biology? Why biology? You should try it for IT or computer science. The field is much more demanding and you might get a quicker job. You might not have to study in college so long." So then I thought about it for 5, 10 minutes. And then I called my actually advisor right then and there before the semester started, literally a day before the semester started. I called her and I was like, "Hey, can I switch my major? Like, can I go from biology to computer science?" She was like, "Sure." And she got me in and I took my first programming class. And ever since then, I was like, "Oh, wow, this is cool." And even before then, I would say I had an interest in like programming and development. Like I started out in basic web development, same person. My dad actually, he bought me like a instructional course CD where it had like a course going from all the way from the basics of HTML and CSS, teaching you how to make like a full-fledged website. So that was like really like my first spot where I started out coding and started out development, and I saw like how you can type some things and like actually make something work and build it out and show it to someone. I was like, "Oh, cool, this is cool." So ever since then, I've had that passion, and only difference now is that instead of just one code, I've worked on so many different code bases. I can't even keep track of all of them. So yeah, I mean that's been my background. I like how things work and how they're wired to work, and so ever since then, it's been programming and coding, and eventually here software development. So
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Like you mentioned the CD. Like back then, like learning was a lot different than it is now. Like you explained, like how learning was back then. You didn't necessarily have all the sites that you do now. So how did you teach yourself programming?
some of it was self-taught. I mean, I taught myself from the course. It gave learning modules and videos, so I learned using that. And then other stuff I Googled, and I Googled around, and I saw some articles and blogs on how to build things from there. So mostly it was self-taught, and then eventually I liked it so much it became a passion. And but then somewhere right before college started, I was like, "Oh, I gotta do biology. I like medicine and things like that." So I had this weird biology fever that I want to do biology in college and become a doctor. And then luckily my dad changed my mind and helped convince me that hey, this field is much more demanding and you're gonna grow a lot in here. I know how you work. You're gonna like this. So from there, it just went on to that. And I saw I also got involved in college clubs where we did fun like hackathons and programming. So from there, the interest just grew, and it just grew more and more. So it was basically like passion was behind it, behind my driving force of learning. And then I had good people like my friends, and especially my dad, convincing me like, "Hey, this is your forte. You can do this." So passion, and I was lucky to be surrounded by good people that pushed me in the right direction. So
Absolutely. What was it like getting your first job? Was it as hard as it is now, or?
it was difficult. I mean, at the time, like when I was starting out, like 2014, 2015 time, things were harder. I mean, there were not as many resources to prepare as adequately. You would, it would be kind of difficult to know what to expect, and questions wise and interviews. What that goes for both like behavioral and technical. I had like no clue. So like I had to prepare as much as I could, and I used to actually um, you know, have like sessions and like write on flashcards, like try to like memorize things and like remember. But that was I quickly learned that that's not the best way. And then I just kind of solved problems one after the other and then got used to it. And then if any kind of problem got thrown my way, then I would kind of apply the same logic, like what's the kind of take a global look at the problem, like what are we trying to fix, what kind of algorithm is this, and how do we go about fixing the problem, and explaining the thought process. So it was actually the first one. Getting that was hard, like it was difficult. I still remember that, actually, even though it was a while ago. I still remember that memory is still with me.
Yeah, I pretty much had the same experience. Had to, put in like 50 plus resumes and deal with a ton of rejection calls. Like, how did you deal with the rejection?
That was challenging too. It was not easy. I mean, I would doubt myself, like, can I really do this, or am I fit to do this? Or, are you sure? Like, would have that conversation with myself. But then I remembered back to one of my college classes. Actually, there was a project that I worked on that, we had to basically create a puzzle. Like, like how like you create a maze, and like, like a mouse or a rat, they walk through the maze. And so you had to make it in a way so like the program was using recursion to solve the maze, like, the mouse being the client, and then the server being the maze. So figuring out, like, I was one of the first ones in my class to figure that out. So that kind of, you know, confidence always gave me, like, boost, like, hey, you did this. You were the first one in the class to figure this out, and you participated in this hackathon. So, you should keep doing it, keep trying, and don't get discouraged. And, I also had a good, like, advisory group. Like, we had teachers. One of the professors was very good, very, like, encouraging, actually. Like, when I was feeling down that, I didn't ace the interviews. So she was telling me, like, look, it's not the first time you're gonna see this. You're gonna see this later too, even when you're like 10, 20 years deep into your career. I mean, you're not gonna check all the boxes, so you have to keep trying. So that's how that went. Like my old project, like my college project, that gave me a boost. Like that gave me the confidence that you can do it. You were the first one in the class to figure this out, and you're trying to figure out your first job. I think you can do it. So it was a lot of self talk and a lot of you know, I had to overcome imposter syndrome and self doubt, but eventually I got there. It was tough, but it took a lot of perseverance, I would say.
Ron, how many years in the industry did it take before you really started feeling confident with your skills?
Ooh, that's a nice question. Um, I would say maybe like 6. Because this is my 7th year in the industry, and I would say last year is really when like really got my groove, as far as like I can like join a team, and I can learn what problem they're trying to solve, and I can kind of identify what's good over there, what needs to be fixed, and what needs to be addressed. So I would say my last year is when I really kind of gained the full confidence that, I can do this, and I can, you know, go through this. So yes, I would say it took me about 6 years in the industry.
So, like from then to now, did the way you approach problem solving did it change any? Like, what are you doing now that you weren't doing back then?
Oh yeah, I mean a lot. Like, when I was a more newer developer, my key goal was, delivering the projects and delivering the applications to the end consumer, and as fast as I could, so that way I can do the next new project and the next new project. But for long term growth, that's not the best, like, you know outlook. I mean, for the early years, it works because you're seen as someone who develops, and develops with pace. Quality is important too. You have to develop with pace and also quality. Um, One thing I would say that I learned about myself is, as I was delivering with pace. But then I also asked myself one day, like, what do I need to do to get to the next, like, level in my career? So, like, I'm delivering all this stuff. Like, do I need to think of something that I'm not thinking right now? And then I sat down with one of my mentors from like a long time ago, and I, told her and I walked her through, and she told me, she was like, you're delivering great, you're delivering with pace, great. Make sure you're also delivering with quality. You're also keeping the future state of whatever application you're building, the future state architecture, the future state design of the application. You're keeping that in mind because you can deliver as many features as you want to an app, but if it's not usable, if the customers don't enjoy using it, then it's not good. So think long term about the project itself. Like, if you're building a web app, think long term. What's going to happen if this web app is close to being retired and being replaced by something else? Or how does it look on a mobile view? Or what if it has to be integrated with another application? So I would start thinking a little more ahead and a little more future. Like, I would ask a lot of questions, and sometimes they were challenging questions, and I didn't mean to challenge anybody, but I would ask literally, like, what's the future state of this application that we're building? And so those kinds of questions, they got me further, and I was trusted enough by like my developers and also my leadership to do future state things and like draw out feature strategies because I had my lens like updated or like widened, like my lens were wider. So I had to go a step further, like more than just deliver with pace, also deliver with quality and think about the future state, like what's going to happen, like X number of months or X number of days. So yep.
So beyond just delivering, it's really important to consider like the future state of the application, and maybe if it's going to be handed off.
Mhm.
Like, what are some of the ways you ensure that handoff would be, like seamless, and that the application would be maintainable?
I would do I mean, typically I've seen two approaches in the industry. I mean, one, let's say a development team wants to hand off a project. They can either have like a 1 or 2 day long sessions where they're handing off the project and going over everything from like, the project directory to the unit tests, the pipelines and the integration tests and the production deployment process, all that stuff. Me, I prefer like a different approach to make it a more successful transition. If I were to transition a project to another team, the way I would do it is I would probably have like as I'm working on the project, I'd establish like a weekly touch points or bi-weekly touch points between me and the transitioning team, so that way they're aware of the current challenges and the future of when what we're trying to build. So it's more so like they're more invested that way, and it's more of like a community or like like they're more like you're bringing them together as opposed to bringing them the finished thing. All right, here's what we built. Take this. So it's a different approach than just doing that. Like it's more so you're bringing them in with you and you're partnering with them and you're handing it off like that. You're kind of there for them if they have questions. So there's those two ways that I've seen, but I prefer that one where as you're developing the project and you're going to hand it off eventually, then have like established touch points, weekly or bi-weekly with them to share what you're doing and what challenges you're facing with the project and where you want to take it.
Yeah. So with that answer, you kind of really emphasize like dealing with people. How important are the soft skills when it comes to being a leader?
Very, very, very important. I mean, I would say 90% of if I were to put a number on it, I would say 90% of tech leadership is all about the people. Um, you could have the best idea, you could have the best technology, you could have the best, most clean code, maintainable, whatever. But if you can't convince your team or your peers that there are these benefits and these pros and cons, then um, it's no value. And the other thing is not only convincing but also influencing, making sure they have your respect, making sure they trust you, making sure that you're transparent with them, because that those things are very valuable in the industry. I mean, like the hard skills, like the actual technical skills, they will take you far, but they will take you only so much far. How you deal with people, how you interact with them, how you make them feel as you're working with them, and if you're open to their ideas, that makes a huge difference. Um, and I've been in both sides of that, situation, like, where I've had to deal with someone that, prefers to deal a different way. And, you know, they didn't exactly see my point of view and I would try to share it to them for their own benefit. And sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't, but the important thing is being open and transparent with whoever you work with, and coming from a place of care. Like, if someone can improve something and you want to share it with them, whether that's a project that they worked on or a code that they wrote, or whether you know anything, just let them know that's from a place of care, that you're sharing with them, that because not because you want to bring them down or you want to you know take a stab at them, but you want them to actually get better and overall improve everything. So very, very important. I would say if I were to put a number on it, maybe even 99%, I would say it's very important.
So, like, have you ever come across a situation where somebody was like really difficult to work with, like they didn't really take your considerations to mind, and how did you get them on track? Oh, I think it froze
Yes,
up.
things like.
Okay, yeah, I think you're back.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I did have a situation like that where there was, a couple of times where there was one person that was difficult to work with. And initially, I mean, I shared it with them, and I shared it with I was frustrated for sure. I mean, because I'm a human too, I have feelings and emotions. And all. So, but I didn't let that get to me. I initially spoke to them. I was like, hey, we're working on this thing together, and, we want to make it a success. We want to make it nice and everything. So I sat them down, I talked to them, and I was like, look, I know you probably didn't mean this like that way, or you didn't probably, mean it in that way, but this is how it, you know, at least what was perceived by me or made me feel. And I'm just sharing it with you because I want your success and I want us both to, deliver something nice. So, you know, if there's like some kind of way you can, you know, make it to where like, there's a goal to reach for both of you, both parties involved, like, there's a goal to reach for both of you. You guys would make something work. Always perceive it that way because there's always going to be people that are different. They work different than everyone, they work different than you. So always make it about the goal, like what you're trying to achieve, and like some kind of goal that you both want to achieve together. And then it becomes easier from there. So
Absolutely. Have you ever had a team member who, they're a great person, but they're not quite up to par technically? Like, how do you deal with that, and how do you get them on track?
yep, that's happened before too. And the way I would handle that is I would lead by example. So when I was actually a lead engineer, I would lead by example. Like I would overshare actually with my teammates that, this is the project that I have. These are my timelines. I used to set my own timelines, like my own, like, these are my goals for, Friday of this week or, Monday of next week. And so I would share that openly so that I kind of created a culture of where people would, you know, kind of, rise to that same level that I was operating on. So then, they would, instead of the conversation being like, hey, you need to get here, it would be more so like, this is the baseline. Can you get up to here? And then if I still saw that, they're not kind of as technically on par, then I would share with them privately. Which is another thing, never, if you have critical feedback for anyone, always share that in private with them and make sure they're ready to hear, like ready to like, hear and understand because, they might be having a bad day, you never know. So always share it privately and, bring it back to the original thing. Like, the goal is this and, this is where we are, you know, don't make it about the person ever, make it about, the situation itself. And it always gets better from there. So
Absolutely. Can you tell us about some of your greatest wins? Like, have you taken a junior and just turned them into an amazing senior, or anything like that?
yes, I actually had, like, over the course of my career, I think I've had, like, a total of 8 or 9 mentees, and I think, in 2021, so a couple of years ago, yeah, 2 years ago, the 3rd one, 3 out of my 8th one, like, got to, like, the a level where I am, like, you know, uh, at the level as far as, like, the technical leadership goes. So, yes, and, even that something like that requires consistent work between both the mentor and mentees, which is why some people find it very tricky, mentors and mentees. Like I think the best way is if both people they have expectations for each other, and they're upfront about those expectations, then things are easy, things are seamless. But both like mentor mentees have to be clear about their expectations. Like, what do they both want out of the relationship, and what do they not want? So otherwise, it's hard because I've been in those mentor mentee type relationships too, where expectations weren't always clear. Maybe from my side, maybe from their side. So usually those kinds of things, they would fall off. But you know, I always, there's always, different avenues to explore mentor and mentoring. So yeah, I mean, and I was very proud when that happened. When they leveled up, I was like, yes, I won. Like, I was very happy for them. It felt amazing seeing that.
So, like, say for example, somebody in the audience, they wanted you to be their mentor. What are some of the things you would tell them to get them from like junior to senior, then senior to tech lead? Like, what are some of the traits and lessons?
One thing I'll definitely say is it's not gonna happen overnight. Like, don't expect to have it tomorrow or like 6 months or even like a year from now, because the reason why I say that is not to discourage, but every person's learning process is different. Every person's journey is different, where they are currently and where they want to get to. And every company also is different in the way they have those levels. And so it all depends on many different factors, and especially now with the way the career market is, like for tech, like it could be very very different. So I think the key thing is if someone from the audience did want to partner up with me, yeah, I mean, I'd love to, but just know that it requires a good bit of a perseverance on both of our sides. Like I would have to persevere and make sure that I'm giving you all the help and attention you need to go from point A to point B, and also for you to know that it might take a while, and it takes a good amount of convincing, it takes a good amount of learning, and it's a mindset shift too. Like sometimes what gets you promoted or what gets you leveled up is not the same thing that's going to keep you there. Like there's other skills that you have to use to get to the next level, and you have to master those skills. So that's the key thing. That's actually a key learning for me as well. I mean, I remember when I was like trying to get to my like next level. The same thing that got me to my current level at the time, it wasn't the same thing that was going to get me to my next level. Like I had to operate differently. I had to work with my teammates a little bit differently. I had to deliver, like, contribute to projects a little bit differently. So it takes a lot of patience and perseverance, but it's definitely doable. And the other thing I would suggest on the mentor mentee topic is seek out as many mentors as you can, because that's like just as many perspectives you can have, because it's always good to have you know one person's perspective, but the more variety you have in your like knowledge base, the better it is. So that's that's the one thing that was a learning to me. I didn't really take advantage of mentors that much. So that's one thing I want to share. So you don't make the same mistake that I did.
So, are you looking for a mentor, and like, what would your ideal mentor be to take you to the next level?
Honestly, I don't know. I am looking for a mentor, and for some things, but like I don't know what ideal, you know, characteristics or qualities they would have just yet. Um, but one thing I'm deciding is while I'm trying to figure out who will be my mentor, I'm also asking myself, like, hey, okay, where do I want to go? Where do I want my mentor to help me go? What is the most fulfilling thing for me in tech? Like, do I like being the senior tech lead, or do I want to, go further and, develop into a new role after that? Or is there more things I have to learn in this senior tech lead role? So it requires a conversation with oneself. Like, you really have to sit down and ask yourself, like, what do I want and what do I not want? And what am I doing now that I could be doing to, get to the next level? So it requires a lot of planning. And sometimes it takes a while. It can be a little bit anxiety inducing, but once you're past it, things get a lot easier. That's for
Hmm.
sure.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the point you made about being technical. It only gets you so far, and you have to start developing other skills. I kind of feel like at a certain point you hit a technical ceiling, and then you're gonna have to start learning more about the business
Yep.
and the impact you're making. Can you speak about like, because a lot of times like we in tech, we work in a silo. We just want to be given a project, we do it, but we don't think about the impact on the business. Can you speak about having to deal with any of that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's actually early in my career, I made that mistake. I was so focused on the tech stack. I was so focused on the language, so focused on the framework. I paid little attention to that. Which is why I was saying, I used to deliver with pace. I was like, hey, here you go, here you go. Here's this modal, here's this page, here's this like flow, here's this API update. I didn't think much about the impact that I was making until my mentor, she sat me down and she was like, hey, if you want to get to the next level, you got to ask these questions. Like, you got to ask about the long term strategy. Where is this project going? And why are we building this? And you have to ask, you have to know. So not only do you know what you're building and how you're building it, you also know the why behind it. How many customers is it going to help? How many, businesses is it going to help? So, knowing the impact is really, really important. At some point, and I think everybody deals with this kind of thing, you get so kind of obsessed with the tech, with the code and the tools, it kind of becomes easy a little bit to forget about, like, why you're there in the first place. Because if you remember, like, when I mentioned what got me into the whole tech thing was, you could type some things on the keyboard and, like, make it appear. So that's what really excited me. So I forgot about that initially because I was so enamored by the tech stack. I was like, oh wow, this language, that language, this framework, that framework. So it took me, I had to come back and, snap back to my original self. Um, so it's really important to know about that because actually, whatever company you're working in as an engineer, um, it's very like if you want to grow in that company and like further level up, it's really important to know about the business side. So that way you know the impacts and you can also contribute to the strategy of the overall business as a tech person. You can kind of, anticipate what needs to happen, what needs to get built, what needs to get sunset, and you can guide others, with that knowledge. So absolutely important to know about the business. Yep.
So I know like as you get more senior, it goes from like focusing on tech to dealing more with the business side of it. Like, do you find dealing with like the business people challenging? I know there could be like sometimes a communication barrier. They don't necessarily understand the technical side, and communicating that to them. How are you able to break that down to them in a way they can understand?
I don't use I use very minimal tech lingo when it comes to communicating with non-technical folks because they're they you want to meet them there, you want to meet them where they are, you want to meet them feel like you want to make them feel like they're part and they're welcome. So I sometimes, like, if they want to know the technical reasons behind building something, or I would definitely explain, like I'd give them the high level design diagram or, like, the document if they want to know. But otherwise, like, if they want to know the quick, and usually that's the case, like, working with business oriented folks, they want to know, more so the quick and, the quick and dirty, like, what is it, what is it, like, is it, can it be built or can it not be built, or what are there any blockers. So I usually keep the non-technical, I usually keep the technical jargon out of it, unless they want to know and they want to, like, educate themselves how it really works. Then I can always share with them. But that was a learning experience for me too, because I used to be so enamored with the tech, so I would just give them the tech explanation and not go about, like, what it really is, like, you know the easy terms, the layman's terms. And so that took away some opportunities from me, like, that I could have scored. But you live and you learn. So definitely make an effort to meet them where they are and also show them where you're coming from, because the more together, the more you can work with people, the better it is. So,
Absolutely. I know a lot of times you get in those, especially like a mid-level developer, so they start bringing you more into the meetings. The more senior you go, like how many opportunities are you missing out on by just sitting back and staying quiet and not interjecting on the things they're talking about?
plenty. I mean, And there are people like that. Some people they prefer. I mean, it's fine. I mean, if that's how they, you know, want. I mean, if that's the kind of like, I mean, definitely people will be missing out plenty. Like, if you're kind of like just taking it and running with it. I mean, in order to advance in your career, yes, you'd be missing out. But there are people like that too that I've worked with in the past that they're just like give me the specs and I'll go build it. But versus if you want to grow and you want to you know grow in your career and have like a more advanced role, a more senior role, then it definitely pays to ask questions because then those questions they show your leaders and your peers that you're engaged and you're thinking long term and you want to make something that's high quality and you care about the business you're in. So it's really, it would definitely open up a lot of opportunities if the more questions you ask, and don't be afraid to ask either, because it just shows how engaged you are. Yep.
Absolutely. I know a lot of engineers, they can be like introverts, they might be shy, they're not very talkative. How do they start developing a more extroverted nature so they can communicate better?
It In my experience, it's always been, you wanna, like, slowly, like, you wanna make sure they're comfortable at all times. You don't wanna make sure in any way that, you're trying to change them or you're trying to, you know, alter their personality. Never. Never wanna do that. You want to meet them kind of halfway where they are, because there are gonna be people that are introverted and extroverted, and, they get their energy different ways. Like, some people get their energy with being with other people, some people get their energy being alone. So, different people work differently. I mean, typically what I prefer to do, if someone likes to have one-on-one discussions more, then I take it one-on-one with them. And if they prefer more group, then I do more group. Um, it's the key thing is everybody's wired differently, everybody works differently. So from a D&I perspective, I always I try to meet people halfway as much as I can. So, without, ever giving them the feeling that, I'm trying to change them or, do anything like that. Because, I am a certain way as well. And, I might not be someone that someone else prefers. So I look at that as well. I look at myself and, I might not be, you know, interactive as someone wants me to be. So, I try to meet people halfway when working with them.
So yeah, I know like as a tech lead, there's a lot on your shoulders. Not only
Yeah.
do you have to do the technical stuff, the coding, you also have to manage personalities. Like, how do you avoid getting burnt out?
I do music and running and music, running, and very recently, I've been a huge fan of how automatic watches work. I don't know, for some reason. I'm a systems guy, man. I gotta tell you, I just love systems. So automatic watches, they are made. They have a system. They have a gear. They have these wheels inside. So I just open up YouTube sometimes and like I watch like a documentary on somebody making an automatic watch, and they're putting in all the gears and all the levers and all those things, and I just kind of get lost into that. So those 3 things, they keep me afloat. And, oh, definitely the 4th thing is, I take time for myself. Like, I take time off from, work, from chores, from things to, like, have, like, a retreat. And, I change my surroundings to, get, like, a refresh. It's very, very important, because as you said, it's, the more senior you become and the more there's more expectations from you, from everybody, not just from your leader, but, like, from other leaders too. Um, like, expectations increase, and sometimes they increase without explicitly being said that, they're increasing. So, like, that's the other thing too. Like, you have to kind of anticipate your leader's, expectations as you, go up the, ladder. So, but yeah, my escapes are, music, running, and taking time to myself. And I love learning about automatic watches. So, 4 things I would say.
What kind of music do you create?
I don't create music, actually. I just listen to it. I listen to,
Oh,
like, I like classic. I like classic. I like pop. Um, I like a little bit of rap, a little bit of a hip hop. So just anything that sounds good to my ears. I wouldn't even mind if it's in a different language. If it sounds good to my ears and I can understand the melody and I can kind of, jive with it and groove with it, I'll listen to it. So that's the kind of music person I am.
So are you like an audiophile? Like, do you have expensive headphones and speakers, or
Uh, no, I actually no, not an audiophile. I do have a Spotify account. I love Spotify. Like I have a really, I actually have a 48-hour long Spotify playlist, if you can believe that.
oh wow.
Like, so I have a Spotify account, and, I have some very basic headphones that I put in, and, I like them wireless, so that way when I'm running, the wires don't interfere.
Hmm.
I think everybody has these days AirPods, so, um, yeah, I mean, very basic headphones, but I do have a Spotify account, and I have one playlist that's, like, over 48 hours long. So,
Oh man.
yeah.
Yeah, I would say don't get started on the audiophile journey unless you want to go broke, man. It gets expensive. So like so like do you foresee yourself like moving away from the more technical hands-on thing and being more in a leadership position, or do you love tech so much like you're kind of cool with being in this like the same general position?
I think I'm kind of in both right now. I mean, as a team lead, you also have some people responsibility. And as a technical lead, like, you're also looking at the strategic overarching direction of where the project is headed, where the, team is headed with their deliverables. So I do a little bit of both, and I'm learning every day, like, different things about, how to deal with the tech stack, especially as technology advances so much, and also the people side of it, like, how to coach and mentor and also guide people, especially as they want to advance up. So I think definitely, that would be definitely like a continual step for me. I enjoy it. It gives me fulfillment for sure. It gives me fulfillment, and I, get energy from it. So I'm definitely looking forward to continuing more, and, excited to see what the future holds. So.
So like when it comes to managing people, it seems
Mhm.
like you're really considerate of their feelings and analyzing and meeting them where they're at. Like where did how did you develop that particular philosophy? Because there's like certain leaders who's like it's my way or the highway. What made you like be more considerate?
That's a good question, actually. I don't even know the perfect answer to that, but, I always look at myself, and I look at, people that are close to me will tell you that, I have my own quirks too. Like, I yeah, sometimes I could call them at random times and ask them a question, or sometimes I wanna, go out and eat something at random times. So, like, I have my quirks, so, you know, I would kind of think, maybe from a human perspective, they have their own quirks too, just like I have my own quirks. So I treat them the way I want to be treated, the way I would want to be treated. So, that's how I kind of developed that mindset. And I wouldn't even say that I'm fully there. I mean, sometimes I do have my days where I'm like, oh man, not today. Please don't say that today, or please don't do that today. So it takes a lot of practice to develop it over time gradually. Um, But the key thing for me is I remember that, I'm not a perfect person, so I can't expect others to be like that either. Um, you know, we're all perfect in our imperfections. That's the way I look at it. So, I just treat everybody the way I want to be treated. So,
Absolutely. I know as a leader, like you can't necessarily show how you're feeling. It could be chaotic, but you have to keep the calm, cool persona. Like, how do you manage your emotions? How do you avoid like blowing up or letting it show on your face? How do you keep calm under pressure?
I I remember that, I always remind myself that, everybody is fighting their own battles, and, just like, they're fighting their own battles, I'm fighting my own battles, and when you're in that kind of position, then, you can't afford to have something like that happen. I mean, granted, it's happened with a few people, but, it's something that, should be very, very carefully avoided at all times. Um, I just remember, like, I always remind myself maybe they're dealing with something, maybe, they're dealing with something I don't know. And the other thing is I always make it about the goals of the business or the deliverables. So that way, it's not about the person itself, but it's more so about, we need to do steps 1, 2, 3 to get there. And you're currently on steps one. So how can I help you get over there? So the conversation is different. It's not more so about them, but more so about how I can help them get there and what I can equip them with to get there. So that's the approach that I try to take, usually or most of the time.
Absolutely. So, like for the developers who are trying to break out of the solely technical roles, like how do they show that they're interested in the business, and how do they learn about quote unquote the business to be able to showcase that knowledge?
That's an awesome question. So if you're looking for a job and looking for a some kind of like technical role, like a engineer role, try to find it in an industry that you enjoy. Like, try to find it in an industry that you enjoy and you will like working with. Because otherwise, if you try to go in and you try to fake that passion and you try to do this research about the company, you might cut it. You might get the job because it'll show the employers that, hey, this person's done their research. They care about it. But it's only going to take you so far because eventually, like, you'll get tired and tired of it. The same old thing. So try to look for like roles that are closer to your interests, your industry. Like if you like media, if you like music production, you like animation, then look for tech roles where animation companies or music type companies, they have those open. So you could have a nice story to tell as well, that hey, I know you have this product and I also love this. So it makes things easier. So I mean, people can fake the passion, but it's only going to take them so far. Like, you can only fake it so much. Like if you're you know you go to somebody's house and they try to feed you something, you don't like it, but you still eat it. You're only going to eat it so much, and then when they look away, you're probably going to put the plate aside and be like, all right, I'm done. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, that's a great point. So like I know when it comes to managing developers they hate being micromanaged, but so how do you find that balance between not being so laid back to where they're getting off task and not micromanaging them?
I encourage everybody to have milestones, so that way, basically, like, weekly milestones or biweekly milestones to show what they're planning to achieve and what they're going to achieve, like, in the coming weeks. So this way, it helps me understand how much they are thinking about accomplishing and what they might need help with. And so it helps me measure their progress too, or gauge their level of skill and understanding. So that way, it doesn't have to be about micromanaging them at all. It's more so about, okay, you've done step A and your step B is tomorrow. So what do you need from here? So, you know, if you are clear and transparent with them as a leader, with your engineers as a leader, about, this is what we need to be, this is what needs to be done, and you're clear about it, you're clear about the goals, and then you have something formal in writing, then it makes things a lot easier. And then if there's any kind of issue still after that, you just have an open conversation about, hey, what happened over here and how it can be avoided, and then just go from there. And then if it becomes something repeated, if it becomes a repetitive thing, then you have to have a more serious conversation, like, okay, this seems like a repetitive pattern. Why is this? We talked about this. Is there something I can help you with, in addition to this? So, you know, it's but the thing with this to work is that both, like, the leader and also the engineer, they have to be very like, they have to be like on the same page, working together. The burden should not be on one person, one or the other person. So, nobody likes being micromanaged at all. I mean, as far as I know, nobody likes being micromanaged. But I mean, that's one way to avoid it. You set clear milestones for everybody, and you encourage them to set them themselves. And so, you know, you, people kind of create their own destiny after that.
Absolutely. So I know you're still painting your path forward, like in terms of where you want to move to. But are you starting to develop like additional skills to kind of prepare for this like future role? And how are you going about that?
I look for opportunities in my current roles to see where I can get some exposure. One thing I always do is for we were talking about mentors earlier. Some people that I know in the industry that I look up to, that I respect, and that I see that they're well accomplished and they're well respected. I always tap on their shoulder and I ask them, like, hey, what's it like? Like, what is this role like? What is it like being doing this, every day? And what are your gratifying moments, and also what are your challenging moments? So that way they give me both, like the good, bad, and ugly, everything about the role, and so then it puts in my brain some considerations, some ideas, whether if I imagine myself, like if I got selected for that role tomorrow, then would I be able to contribute effectively? Would I be able to do my job, successfully? So I always ask for different people's perspectives. Like, if they're in a role that I want tomorrow, I ask them, like, hey, what do you enjoy? What do you not so much enjoy? So, yeah, it helps to know. But, ultimately, the person that is applying for the role, they're going to know once they get the role. And, because reality is different than, the perception when you're dealing with it. So, you're still going to find some surprises. Like, even if you get that dream job or you get that dream role, you're still going to find like surprises. You're still going to find like unanticipated things to deal with. The key thing is being open and being truthful to yourself. Like if you make a mistake, definitely like own up to it and really talk to yourself and ask yourself, why did the mistake happen? Could I have done something differently? That honesty with yourself becomes very, very important. You have to be honest with yourself. Like, is this something I really want? Or is this something that am I joking with myself? Do I really want this? Or do I just want the title? Or do I want the, you know, limelight or whatever? It's, you have to ask yourself all those questions because there's no such thing as a dream job. Everybody says there's a dream job. I mean, every job comes with good and bad. You want to find, I mean, for anyone, you want to find a job that has, just enough good. So where like if there's a little bit of bad, you can handle it. Fine, no big deal. So yeah, that's the kind of balance you want to have. Every job comes with its, you know, barrel of monkeys.
Absolutely. Are there any technical leaders you look up to, and like what are some of the lessons you've taken from them?
There are some. They work at AWS. Some solution arc managers and solution arc directors. I read their blogs. I read about like I listen to their podcasts and like how they build their projects, how they lead their teams, and how they you know develop design and how they execute. So I read those things a lot, and I listen to their podcasts whenever I can. So that way it increases my knowledge on what they're doing and what they're dealing with, and so it also kind of keeps me current with what they're building. So yeah, I mean, there's a few that definitely I look up to their opinions.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned earlier that you're willing to mentor any listener, or I'm not gonna say any listener, but a listener who may hit you up. Like, where can they reach you at?
There's they can contact me via LinkedIn. My LinkedIn account. Shoot me an invite or follow me on my blog, and I'll get in touch with you. So yeah, I mean, yep,
I know
happy to
sometimes
help.
like less senior developers, they're intimidated by reaching out to like leads and people that's higher up on the food chain. So like, what advice would you give them?
It's just another human. Like they breathe the same air, they drink the same water, they eat the same food. Like it's just another human. So I used to be the same. Like I used to be nervous about that kind of stuff too. So you just have to tell yourself, like, be open with them for sure. Like if you're approaching anybody for mentoring, be very open with them. Like, what are your goals? And or if you don't know your goals, then that's fine too. Just tell them, like, hey, I don't know, but can you help me? Like, just be open about what it is you want or what it is you're trying to do. And people value transparency is what I've learned. When you're open and you're clear, people value that. So
Absolutely. So, like, can you tell us a little bit about your blog? What made you want to start writing a blog?
I was having my brain was running out of space. I was having so much knowledge up here, and I was working on so many different projects. I was like, you know what? I need to have some kind of journal. I need to like, publish somewhere so I don't forget this stuff. So I started my blog in like 2021, and then my blog was very basic. Like I didn't have much fancy stuff on there, and then like I it was just like basic. It was like a journal pretty much. Like today I did this, today I did that, just to remind myself, these are the things I'm experienced with. This is the things I know. So kind of like a career journey. Um, so then eventually, like, it just grew. Like I started really like getting engagement and people enjoyed what I was putting out. They enjoyed what I was writing. And so then I was like, hey, what if I take this up a level? What if I teach like lessons learned or, API practices or, things to do when designing something or, how to use a specific technology. So it just kind of became like an ongoing journal thing for me. Um, Oh, by the way, it was my 5th thing actually, like, the 5th thing is the other thing that kind of helps me decompress is actually writing and blogging and, sharing, like, with the wider tech community about different things. So, that's the other reason why I got into blogging, like, it was kinda like an escape for me, like, escape from, everyday life, chores, work. So, yep, it was a passion that I found.
Absolutely. I know burning out is very easy in this industry. Like, what lessons outside of work would you give to the listeners?
Definitely, find some hobbies, like find some, nice hobbies. Like, I shared mine like with running and music and you know, automatic watches because I'm a weird person like that. Find something you enjoy and try to find like the good moments in that. Because as much as everybody says, a dream job, this and that, there's no such thing as a dream job. I mean, there's all kinds of jobs and you gotta find the job that there's enough good and bad, and the little bad that's there, the good makes up for it. So you want to find that kind of role and live up to it, but definitely find some kind of hobbies to disconnect and kind of like a ritual to disconnect from work or from chores, and it makes things easy. So,
Absolutely. I think that's all the questions I have off the top of my head. Do you have any closing thoughts for the audience?
uh, uh I we just want to say thank you to everybody that tuned in, and I hope you know I know I rambled on a lot about different things, so hope you got some benefit from this, and hope you got some insight, and you learned some things about me, and from my lessons that I learned, something. So if you have any questions later, just where to find me. But huge thanks for having me. And the world is kind of in a weird place right now with all the uncertainty and things going on. So I know Kevin posts one of Kevin's posts that I really enjoy is the one where if you're not able to find a tech job right away, try to find some jobs so that way you don't go broke, and then find how you can apply technology there. That is very, very, very good advice. That is a very good practical advice, especially for now, because things are so volatile, just everywhere. So, but you have knowledge, like you've acquired knowledge. You spent time to learn a programming language, so don't let it go to waste. Like if you find some kind of non-technical job, then figure out how you can apply your technical skills to that job, and from there you can add it to your resume or you can add it to your portfolio, whatever, and use that as like a basis to apply elsewhere. So that's I saw Kevin's post that one time and it really attracted me. I was like, this is a good person to follow. This is the good person for advice and for some WordPress related things too. So um you know uh I think that's what I'd like to close with, be very open with yourself, like, ask yourself, questions. Is this something I really want? And am I willing to deal with this? When considering any role, whether it's a junior role, a senior role, mid-level role, doesn't matter. Um, because you'll ultimately have to live through the choices and the consequences of your choices once you're in that role. Um, and you'll make mistakes also, no matter what role you choose, what role you're in. So just learn from them, be open with that. But definitely, find a hobby to kind of balance out work and chores with, something to enjoy. Um, I think that's the key thing that I'd like to share, Kevin.
That was great advice, man. I definitely appreciate you for coming on, man. We definitely want to have you back sometime. We like to have like general discussions if you're interested.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, anything I can do to help.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.